there's a lot of roller coaster that comes with breast cancer and continuing on in that journey, and recognizing that we don't have to shame the emotions. They're allowed. And start by feeling that emotion, right? Experience that emotion. And then before we jump into food, before we jump into that, we say, okay, what does it look like for me to maybe meet this emotional need without food? Right? We know food doesn't give us what we want in the end. I think everyone can usually agree with that. But looking at how can I support this specific emotion? I don't have to look at it as bad, but is there a way I can support it without using food?
Welcome to another episode of Wellness Warriors podcast. This is Deanne, your coach and head and host and coach at 7 Essentials for 10 years. And I'm very excited to introduce you all to Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a certified women's nutrition coach, food freedom expert, and behavior change coach. Elizabeth is passionate about helping women break free from the diet cycle and make peace with food. Her approach is all about creating sustainable, healthy habits without the guilt, restriction, or dieting. And so Elizabeth uses mindset shifts, self-compassion, and practical strategies to empower women to stop overeating, to embrace their bodies, and to achieve their health goals in a way that feels good. And she is also the host of a podcast, the Woman of Wellness podcast, where she shares expert insights, actionable tools, and inspiring stories to support women on their wellness journeys. In addition to that, Elizabeth also offers coaching programs. And her coaching programs, she has designed them to help women build consistency, overcome challenges, and create lasting change so that women can feel confident, healthy, and free in their relationship with food and with their bodies. So I'm really excited to talk with you today, Elizabeth. Food and our relationship with food. It's such an important topic. I think it's something that isn't talked about as much as it maybe should be. And, especially with our listeners at Breast Cancer Conqueror, most of the women that we are working with are dealing with some type of a health journey, whether that be cancer or something else. And food is always something people think about when going through healing. Yeah. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So just to start off, could you please explain, you mentioned, in what you do that you work on mindset shifts. So creating mindful eating. Can you explain what mindful eating is and how that might differ from our traditional kind of dieting approaches?
Yeah, that's a great question. We live in a very chaotic world, right? We're coming and going and eating here and there and grabbing and going. And, we've all been guilty of this. And so mindful eating is really a practice of being aware of what's going in your body. And a lot of women that are trying to support their health, that's probably the biggest thing, that when they start to shift that, they start to see a lot of changes. We don't realize how much we eat chaotically and do things chaotically. So mindful eating is, one piece of a bigger health puzzle or picture, I guess you'd say, that helps you get in tune with the needs of your own body. And that's really what it is, because we have all of the signals. Our body will give us all of the signals that we need to know when we're hungry, when we're full, right? We notice signals all the time. I have a headache, I have a tummy ache, all these things. And our body, that is its job to tell us what it needs. And we're in a world that we often ignore it. And especially if we've been in the diet cycle throughout our lives that have told us what to eat, when to eat. And so we kind of suppress this feeling or this trigger, right? This signal that our body's trying to give us. So that's really what mindful eating is it's starting to get in tune with your own body and paying attention to what it's telling you so that you can build that good relationship with food on your health journey.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that too. I would think, and I don't know if this is a part of your coaching, but we are in a society where you eat at this time, and this time. And it's like, that's the schedule. And if you don't, then you're not feeding your body, but maybe you don't actually need to. So it's interesting to think about approaching eating, like you said, more in a mindful way versus just kind of what you've been told by society norms as normal.
Yeah. And it's okay to have a mix of structure with mindfulness, right? And that's what I love is like bringing these together. There are some truths to saying, oh gosh, it's been a while since I've eaten, or I should pay attention, or yeah, I should probably be hungry about this time. That makes sense, right? But then bringing it together to say, okay, what do I need now? And what do I feel?
Awesome. Beautiful. Another thing that I know the women I coach tend to struggle with is emotional eating. And again, just to kind of bring it into what our listeners are dealing with, most of them are on a breast cancer healing journey. And so that's definitely a very emotional time. And I know I've been guilty myself of, I feel kind of sad today, therefore I'm going to eat blank, So what are some common signs that you have noticed that someone might be struggling with emotional eating? And then what can people do to start addressing that?
Yeah. Here's what I want you to know before we even go any further. Emotions are not bad. And so often we want to suppress them or ignore them or identify them as, well, I'm an emotional eater, so that emotion must be bad, right? But the truth is, an emotion gives you another signal, just like we talked about, of something that's off. So you are feeling something. Could be, something going on in your life, something going on in your body, right? Those kinds of emotions. And I actually like to tell women that emotional eating is a little bit of a gift because it helps us connect. If we do it right, like, we're going to talk about that, but if we do it the right way, it allows us to connect more with our bodies to say, okay, something's off. You're giving me a signal here that I'm feeling this way and something's off. And so maybe I'm sad about my diagnosis, right? Or about the process, or like how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling good today and I felt better yesterday, right? There's a lot of roller coaster that comes with breast cancer and continuing on in that journey, and recognizing that we don't have to shame the emotions. They're allowed. And start by feeling that emotion, right? Experience that emotion. And then before we jump into food, because that is a very immediate knee-jerk response of, hey, I want food to fix this, and food does in the moment. Before we jump into that, we say, okay, what does it look like for me to maybe meet this emotional need without food? Right. We know food doesn't give us what we want in the end. I think everyone can usually agree with that. But looking at how can I support this specific emotion? I don't have to look at it as bad, but is there a way I can support it without using food? I'm not sure if I exactly answered your question. Do you want me to go further on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was perfect. But I think that if you could maybe detail a little bit more, because I understand the route you're going is, okay, separate the emotion from food,
Yeah.
Could you kind of just, I guess, dive a little deeper into how someone would do that?
Yeah, that's it. That's a great question. And one thing that I really like to say is just pause. So awareness of emotional eating is a big deal, right? You pause before you go to the food and you say, okay, what am I feeling right now? Right? Just have that 2 seconds, 3 seconds of what am I feeling right now, and identify those emotions. I'm feeling pain. I'm feeling sadness. I'm feeling defeated, frustrated, right? All of these your audience may feel on a regular basis. And when you have that pause, you have just created a connection with that signal in your body. You've created the brain-body connection rather than just that like emotional response of quick, go grab some food. All of a sudden we're connecting and saying something's off here. From there, then you ask yourself, what can I do now? What can I do now? Do I need to take a nap? I think naps solve most of life's problems, if we're being honest. Do I need to take a nap? Do I need to take a breath? Do I need to go and walk outside and just work through these? Do I need to call someone? Do I need to journal? These are all coping mechanisms that are not food. And you just ask yourself, okay, what am I capable of right now? What can I do right now? And then you do that thing. And then you come back and you can ask yourself again, am I hungry, right? We can have that conversation, but at least there's power in that pause. And so I want to remind women that when you feel that emotion and it's that kind of that automatic habit loop of, well, I'm just going to go straight to food, take that 3 seconds. What am I feeling? What do I need? fulfill that, and then come back and say, am I still hungry? Maybe I do need to meet my body's physical needs, right? Maybe there is a hunger cue there happening. But if we can do that, we can support so much of that knee-jerk reaction to turning to food.
I love that. That's beautiful. That aligns very much with what we typically tell our clients, not necessarily with eating, but even with just like emotional management and stress management. Far too often we tend to kind of, like you said, knee-jerk reaction to whatever makes you feel better. Maybe that's food or something that maybe isn't the most of healthy habit. But just like you're saying, take a second to take a step back, use a modality like a nap. I'm a big believer in naps as well. I love good naps, a walk outside, other emotional modalities, and then circle back to it. See if it's something you still need. That's very, helpful and easy to implement, suggestions.
Yeah.
So if you were someone who, currently has maybe not the most of a mindful relationship with food, maybe you're stuck on that schedule, or maybe you are making emotional decisions with food, what would be some basic practical steps you would suggest for someone to take where they could build a mindful relationship with their food?
Yeah. So what I would say is pick one meal, if you can, to choose to sit down without distractions and pay attention to how you're feeling. So start to create that connection with your body again, right? How am I feeling right now? Because so often the disconnect is that we're not paying attention to it. And I think some of the biggest, when you say it against this is, well, I don't have time to sit down, right? And I always say, let's practice it first by really focusing in on it. In fact, I have to share a little analogy. So I love to share this with my clients and students. If anyone has ever potty trained a child, you know that in the very beginning, you are all hands on deck, right? When you are potty training, you are like, you're not leaving the house, right? You are all in, and you're teaching that child to learn their body's cues. And at first, it's really tricky, right? But slowly as they start to learn those cues, maybe you venture outside and you kind of learn, oh, okay, I can go potty anywhere. I can tell my mom, right? And then you venture to the mall or to the store, and eventually they learn those cues anywhere, right? They can manage those cues. Well, when we're thinking about mindful eating, it's a little bit of potty training, where right now we've got to hone in on it. We've got to connect our brain and our body to say, how do I feel right now? How do I want to feel when this is done? How does this food taste to me? And make sure that we're meeting a lot of satisfaction needs in our body. Is this physically satisfying? Like, am I feeling full? Is this emotionally satisfying? Is it a food that makes me feel good, right? And is it a taste satisfaction? Do I like what I'm eating? And when we can start to just sit down and pay attention, I suggest 15 minutes of sitting down, listening to your body. How am I feeling? You don't have to do every single bite, okay? But if you were just to say, set a timer for 15 minutes or whatever, and just sit down and check in with yourself every few minutes and say, how am I feeling? What is my body telling me right now? And as you start to do that, I promise you're going to get in sync with those cues to say, oh, I feel satisfied. And that's a really great opportunity to move on and, put the food away, move on, and just say, okay, I recognized when I felt this way. I listened, I stopped, and I can come back any other time. But this was one experience or one training moment that I had. And as you start to build on those and practice those, it's very similar to that potty training where you start to learn how to mindfully eat in all kinds of situations, because the reality is we can't all just sit down at the table every meal and focus and have no distractions, right?
That's right. I love that, potty training for your eating. That's really
yes.
good. Oh, that's a great analogy. Yeah. And in those 15 minutes, sometimes, like you said, that's going to be someone's first argument back is I just don't have the time. And sometimes even 15 minutes in the beginning feels daunting. But when you actually sit down and do something for 15 minutes, you realize it's such a blip in your day. It's such a small part. That's something that almost anyone can set aside the time to do.
Yeah. And if it's important to you, right? We want to picture the ultimate goal here is creating a better relationship with food and your health. And so it's an investment in creating that relationship that's really, if we think about it, pretty small in the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And, especially with our clients too, one thing that is a commonality is, these are women who are mothers or wives or grandmothers or whatever. They're constantly taking care of everyone else around them. So it's good that you're giving them that permission to say, hey, it is okay for you to take these 15 minutes for yourself to practice this good relationship. Yeah. It's an important reminder for most of the people who will be listening.
Yes, put yourself first because it benefits everyone else around you.
Absolutely. Another question that comes up, and this will happen all the time. I'll work with a client who, has changed her diet, her eating habits, to try to better support her healing journey. And then maybe she goes to an anniversary party or she goes to an event, she goes to something and there's food there that maybe she wouldn't normally have eaten or something like that. How can you encourage people, or what tips would you have maybe for someone to stay consistent with their mindful eating, even in like busy social events, parties, things like that?
Yeah, well, the first thing is when you have that practice already made, it makes it much easier in those events, right? So if you have that practice already down, you'll know what to do. But one thing that I really love to walk women through is a little bit of a meditation where we visualize the event, because there usually is a lot of anxiety around food with events and when there's just an abundance of food. And so we'll visualize that event to say, okay, what do you see? Do you see the food there? Ask yourself, what are you wanting? How do you want to feel? How do you want to leave feeling? And really visualize what they want to get out of that event. It's really, really helpful because if you've created that scenario ahead of time, when you get there, it's just kind of like a plug and play. You come in, you say, okay, I see that food. I have set some goals for myself. I've already visualized this. I made sure that I ate food so I didn't come hungry or starving, right? And I come in and say, okay, yeah, this is what I planned to do, and this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to practice that. And it works so well when you have a little bit of a plan. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But it's the intention. I'm coming in with an intention to leave feeling better and confident. And this is what I want to do to help me get there.
Beautiful. That's a great suggestion. It's similar. I mean, we tell our clients all the time, if you're going to a doctor's appointment, doing some visualization before just to make sure you're in a calm, kind of place is a good tip. But I never thought of implementing that specifically around food choices at those events. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
So this may be a difficult question, so forgive me if you're like, what? How am I going to answer this? But if you could give a story or an event, what is a mindset shift, that you have found to be the most impactful for your clients when it comes to building healthy habits around food?
You are capable of knowing the needs of your own body. I think we are surrounded by so much outside noise that is trying to tell us what to do, when to do it. And we have disconnected from those cues in our body. And so if I could really just send the message to every woman, it's that you have those cues within and we just need to tap into it, right? We need to find it. I mean, we can go back to the baby child analogy. Babies are born with hunger and fullness cues. I mean, I've got a toddler that will push away her food and will stop eating when she's full and ask when she's hungry. And that's still in us. It's still there. But it's decades potentially of diet culture and wellness, what I call noise, that has given us different stories and different things that we feel like we need to follow that. And the truth is, there's some good information out there, right? We know fruits and vegetables are good and proteins, right? We know there's some good standards out there, but at the end of the day, you are the one that is capable of meeting the needs of your own body. And that's what's going to help you thrive.
That's very empowering. I love that. I'm glad I asked. I know it's hard. I know it was a hard question, but like that was perfect.
I'm glad I got it.
That was a beautiful way of just kind of overviewing it. So you were very generous and you offered to give a free little audio meditation about eating to our listeners. So would you mind explaining a little bit about what they can expect with that audio meditation?
Yeah, so it's short. It's like 6 minutes. Okay. So if you've got 6 minutes, it's kind of what I described before. We're just going to have you sit down with a meal and you'll listen. And I guide you through some prompts to look at your food, look at the textures, taste the food. How are you feeling? So it's kind of a first step. If you're like, oh, well, I don't know how to start with this, or I don't know really where to go with this. That's a really great step to say, yeah, I want to connect with my body. I want to get in tune with those cues. And this is the first step to start doing that, to start connecting with your body.
Very exciting. I look forward to doing it. And then if someone did that, but felt like they wanted to learn more, I know you have coaching programs. So where can someone reach out to you and find more about you?
Yes. So I have my own podcast called the Woman of Wellness Podcast. And we talk a lot about, behavior change and food freedom, relationship with food, relationship with our bodies, which is a really important topic, and being able to create and sustain healthy habits. So that's a great one. You can also find me on Instagram at A Woman of Wellness or my website at awomanofwellness.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us today, Elizabeth.
Thank you.